All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. We've got a stellar presentation for you, and first I'd like to let you know a little bit about who we are. Kayako is the platform for a unified customer service experience. Every day our team is driven by the idea that we want to help our customers to use Kayako to deliver better customer service experiences out into the world. We've built Kayako around the premise that if your internal teams are really gelled together, if your relationships with your customers are personal and positive, and you're actually delivering the support experiences that your customers are looking for, are searching for, then you can actually transform your support team into a competitive advantage for your business. So first things first, I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Sandeep, Kaur, and Daniel Harris, who will be taking you through our automation presentation today. If you guys want to give a quick hello to our audience.
Hey guys, this is Sandeep. I'm a customer service advocate, and customer service is what I take all the pleasure in.
And Daniel?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Daniel Harris, Customer Support Advocate. Very excited to be sharing our new product today. It's designed with efficiency and productivity in mind, and I think that's what we're all here for, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome, thanks. So just a couple things to note. We have included some time for live Q&A that Daniel's going to guide us through at the end. So please, throughout the presentation, use the questions section on your GoToWebinar panel, so we'll be able to cover those at the end. And we're also recording this, so if you need to hop off, we will hold back our tiers and email out the link shortly after, so you should be all set. So today we're talking about automation, and we're going to cover some common customer pain points that we're hearing from our Kayako customers. A lot of them maybe are in the audience right now. And what's possible when automation is implemented the right way. The top 3 best practices that we think you can use for creating better customer service experiences, and then how to use that to build your own automation strategy. And we'll finish up with the live Q&A at the end. So let's hop right into it. So we did some digging, and we sourced 3 of the top pain points that we're hearing from our customers. And the first revolves around the struggle in working together within internal teams. Support managers spend a lot of their time, managing, how novel, answering questions, assigning cases, making sure the wheels continue to turn day in and day out. And I think this is a great example because of how common this struggle is. I think it really represents your typical support team operating with a reactionary approach to customer service and to their customers. And related to that, our second pain point revolves around your support team's external relationships with your customers. It's really easy for businesses to say, yes, we're customer-centric. We always put our customers first. But it's a whole different ballgame to show it and to prove it day in and day out, and to have that be woven, I guess, maybe into the fabric of how your team operates. But at the end of the day, there's nothing more important than that, than the relationships with your customers, both from a human perspective where everyone's happy and great, but from a business standpoint as well, from a perspective of revenue and churn. And that's where the competitive advantage bit comes in. Our third pain point might sound familiar to you. It has to do with support metrics being maybe not where they should be. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that perhaps you're not delivering the right customer service to your specific people, to your audience. And you may think you have all of the right elements in place. You're following everything you read in the industry and all that, but at the end of the day, are your customer experiences effortless? Is it frictionless? And is it intuitive enough that both your team and your customer know what needs to happen next without really having to think about it? this is what we mean when we talk about going beyond delight in a lot of the content that we're pushing out right now at Kayako. Customers value simple and easy so much more than they do more singular moments of wow. And making that shift to a self-service model is super important for modern businesses, regardless of industry and vertical, to stay competitive. So what is possible with powerful automation? These are a few things that we've put together. You can save time, of course, by optimizing response and resolution times. You can boost productivity by sending reminder emails and notifications. You can answer customers faster with assigning cases automatically. And you can free up time for your team to focus on helping customers with really honed, fine-tuned, automated case emails. And that's going to give you a lot of control over your end-to-end workflow so that you can kind of better identify those weak points and optimize there instead of just kind of approaching the whole thing as a blanket problem or opportunity, depends on how you look at your glass. So these are actually things that we have done internally at Kayako. And we've seen really great results just from these items that you see right here. We have improved our response time by 75%. That was a shift from a 4-hour response time to 2.5 hours. We've also improved our CSAT score. And these are pretty standard benchmarks of success for support teams in the industry. So it really just helps to have those healthy numbers to back you up in terms of getting, as you scale and making sure that support has a seat at that table in making more strategic business decisions. So the opposite of that, what is the cost of doing nothing? We think the cost is accepting business as usual and accepting that the pain points that we just went over are an inevitable part of reality and that you have no control over it. And that type of thinking is going to really, really hinder your ability to transform customer service into the competitive advantage, as I've said many times so far, as you scale. So now, without further ado, I would love to turn it over to Sandeep, who's going to walk you through our top 3 best practices for transforming your team into proactive customer advocates. So let's see, Sandeep, let me just transfer this over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk about automations. To start with, to give you a little background as an understanding. So, if you are using sorry, let me just set this up. Okay. So let's say you're using a normal email client and then you're using a help desk. And if you're not really exploiting the opportunity to automate things, you're as good as using an email client where you're spending a lot of time, or your team is spending a lot of time, unconsciously or unknowingly sifting through the cases or the requests which come in. So whereas automations can help you save a lot of time in that case. And also, it could be that you have lots of requests coming in where they have to be sent across teams, and you spend a lot of time because your team has to actually open a case, look through it, understand the query, and then pass it on to a different team. So in that case, a lot of time gets wasted, and this is where we are trying to focus, where automations can help you in saving time. And then we'll talk about 3 best practices here and covering different aspects in terms of setting customer expectations, good customer service, and how you can bring in productivity in your team. So first of all, we are going to focus on how to keep your staff on track using automation. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is automate case assignments. Let's take an example that you are an educational institute, and usually you would have only like a couple of emails or a couple of instances where all the students can come and contact you. So in that case, everything would be coming into one big inbox, and then you have to segregate things. Whereas usually this falls under the admin department. They look through the emails and then they pass it on to different schools as they have to, or different departments, or different kinds of requests, like someone trying to get a refund, or someone trying to get access or book a place, a boarding place, and these kind of things. So you might be getting different kinds of requests into one general mailbox, and then the admin staff has to segregate them. Whereas if you automate all this using a help desk, you can save a lot of time. We'll talk about them in detail as to how to set them up. So as we go about, I want you to think how these automations can help you in your business. And as we talk, if you have any questions how it can help you, please feel free to drop in your questions in the question section and we'll take them up. So that's that. And let's say you are a business which supports different kinds of brands. Be it you're in phone support and you support all kinds of phones. Let's say HTC, Samsung, Apple, and then you have different brands, and people come in people can log a case from the HTC brand, or people can log a case from the Samsung brand, and then you have different technicians who look after the two different brands that you are supporting. And then you don't want them to look through each case and then pass it on to each other. Okay, this is from HTC, I think you should be looking at it, and this is from Samsung, I think you should be looking at it. So in order to avoid all that confusion and make sure that your staff is actually working on providing good service rather than spending time or wasting time rather in sifting through the cases. So in that case, automate case assignments is one of the things that you can make use of so that your staff gets productive with their work. The next one is automate reply and resolution deadlines. I mean, you would have otherwise heard of it as an SLA as well, so that's what people generally call it as SLA. So that's another thing that you can automate here. So let's say you use the help desk internally, and you have internal customers, and some of your customers could be the senior board members, and then at times they have to end up with setting up meetings on the spot, and then as an IT team you have to set up or gather all the equipment that they need for the meeting. And in that case, you might have to give them kind of quick service, as in terms of so if they say that the meeting room has to be set up within 10 minutes and they log a request with the IT team, you can set up automated reply and resolution deadlines depending on the kind of request that is coming in or the person that the request is coming in from. So rather than your staff having to worry about like, okay, so this was a request which came in like 10 minutes ago and I have to get this done, and then they have to keep a note of it. So even if they might be working on one case, at the back of their mind they have something else running and they have something else they have to take care of. And so these kind of things, they can create a lot of confusion, or they may not let the person work or give their best when they're working on a particular case. So you have this opportunity to automate reply and resolution deadlines so that they're automatically taken care of. You can segregate, let's say, so if there is a sales request coming in, or you want it to be answered within, let's say, 4 hours, and you want it to be resolved within 8 hours, or if there's a support request which is with high priority, you want it to be dealt with within an hour, and it has to be resolved within 2 hours. So these kind of things you can automate easily, and your staff doesn't have to worry about to keep a tab on things that something doesn't go amiss. So that's what we mean when we say automate reply and resolution deadlines. And then finally, it's keep closer tabs on high priority customers. This is basically a combination of both the above points that we discussed. So you automate case assignments, and then based on the high priority customers, you can create a kind of automation where all the cases from high priority customers are assigned as soon as they come in, or you can give them a kind of a special reply and resolution deadline if the case is coming in from a high priority customer. So let's take an example here, which we generally get asked a lot. So So people say that they have a special customer or a special organization that they deal with, and they want to set up a particular reply or resolution deadline for that customer or for that organization. So this is where you can automate. So you don't have to worry about, okay, if the case has come from so-and-so company, I want to go and manually change and set the reply hours or set the resolution hours. So you don't have to worry about that. It can be automatically taken care of through automations. So whereas you select that if the case is coming from this particular organization, apply this reply and resolution deadline. So this is how automations can help you keep tab on high priority customers as well. And then another example where you can think of automations is, so let's say you have the previous example, let's say we were talking about a senior board member sending in a request, and then you have a new starter and you don't want the new starter to be dealing with that request. Instead, you want your an experienced person to be dealing with such requests. So in that case, again, you can make sure that if the case is coming from this particular customer, I want it to always be assigned to a senior person or an experienced person in the team, so that it can be resolved or replied quickly. So these are the kind of things which you can achieve through automation, and they can help your staff to stay on track. I mean, think about it. You don't have to worry about assigning cases to each other. You don't have to worry about the sorting through the cases. Okay, when was the last time it was replied? Did I miss the FRT? Did I miss the reply on the case? So all these things can be automated, and in return, your staff can focus on actually delivering good customer service. So I'll walk you through as to how to set them up. So let's say I've got them set up already for you. So you go to the admin panel of your Kayako instance, and then the first thing that we talked about is segregating or auto assigning cases based on the brand that they came in from. So let's check this one. So we have this brand set up here. So every case that comes from the Kayako brand, it has to be assigned to the support team. So similarly, you can have like tens of brands, and then you can select if the brand is equal to this, it should go to the support team, or you can tag, it has to be tagged with the brand name. So you can add a tag, let's say Kayako. So you can do different kind of things, automated actions based on the brand that the case is coming from. So, and also you can set assignee if you want a particular assignee to be looking after a particular brand. In that case, you can do that as well. So that's that. Next up, we talked about setting up reply and resolution deadlines. So we'll take that up under the SLAs. So you go here, once again under the admin area, and then you have organization-based SLA. So what you do is, so you select the criteria as if the organization is equal to Kayako, and then you set the first reply time, next reply time, resolution time for that particular organization. So any case that comes in from Kayako would be given this priority, or would be given the first reply would be within an hour, and the next reply, once the customer has replied back, would be within 2 hours, and it has to be resolved within 3 hours, or it will go, or you will miss the SLA. And you can select whether you want it to be run on operational calendar hours or your business hours. So you have the option to define your business hours. So if you work 9 to 5, it will be running only from 9 to 5. You can do that under business hours here. So you go here and then you set the business hours. So you select and then you set the business hours. So 9 to 5, whichever days you work. So you select that and then you link it with the teams, and the SLA plans would run according to that. And then going back to our other triggers, and then we have high priority customer. So let's say the customer has a tag added VIP. So when you create, so let's say you create a user account and then you add the tag VIP, and based on that, it can be picked in. So let's say the case tag contains one of the following VIP, and then you want to change priority to high, and then you want to assign it to some particular staff member, and then you can make all those changes here in the actions. And going back to the next best practice, which is help set expectations. So customer service is all about, setting right expectation up front. What it leads to is it leads to less friction and keep people happy. So when you're setting right expectation, it's human nature that if you have the right expectation set up, you know what to expect, and then you don't get disappointed. So that's what we are trying to achieve here through the second best practice that we are going to talk about. So the normal workflow is that customer contacts you, and then you send them an autoresponder that we have received your request, and then you deal with it, and then there's a reply which goes to the customer. Now, how can we make it better using automation? So what we can do is, instead of sending a normal autoresponder, we now have the option that where you can send in keep in a different autoresponder if someone submits a case during your out of business hours. So let's say you tell in the autoresponder that you have a normal reply time of 4 hours to every request that comes in, but your business hours are 9 to 5, and someone submits a request or a case at 6 in the evening when it's out of your business hours. Autoresponder would still be saying, okay, our normal reply time is 4 hours, which would not be the case here, because the customer, you have set the expectation for the customer that it is 4 hours, so he would be expecting a reply from you in 4 hours, whereas you know that it is out of your business hours. So this is one thing that you can automate here. So if, let's say, someone submits a case out of your business hours, you can send a different autoresponder saying, okay, we are closed at the moment. Once we are open, this is the time that we take to normally get back to your request. So this helps you to set right expectation up front with the customer. And if you don't, if you don't have this out of office business autoresponder, it could be that people end up coming back to you and asking about an update on the request. And once again, when they come back to you for an update, you would still be out of office hours. It would still be out of office hours, and then that leads to further friction. So all of this can be avoided by setting up right kind of autoresponders through automations. Next up is follow-up notifications. So let's say you have provided the service, and then the issue is resolved, and then in the end, the customer gives you a rating. It's a good or a bad. And in that case, again, you can help, you can use that to your advantage, or to create further relation or good communication or good relation with the customer. So let's say someone submits a good rating. And then through automations, what you can do is you can send them a quick, kind of acknowledgement saying, okay, hey, you said that we did a good job, and then we promise that we will continue to provide good service in future as well. And then similarly, if someone submits a bad rating due to some reason, and then you can take a follow-up on that as well. And you don't have to do all this manually, and all of this can be easily achieved through automations. So let's say someone submits a bad rating, and then you can send them a quick follow-up saying, okay, we got a bad rating, and then we want to understand what went wrong. What can we do to make it better for you the next time you need to contact us? So this is a kind of feedback or a kind of expectation that you can set with the customer, saying that you're actually listening to the requests that are coming in. And so this kind of, it creates a good customer service. It sets the right expectations and creates good customer service as well. I'll show you quickly as to how to set that up. So let's say survey-based notification. First we talk about out of business hours. autoresponder. So let's say someone has submitted a case which is not equal to your business hours. And then the case type is new case created, because we want to send autoresponder only when there's a new case created. So that's the kind of conditions we have set in. And then you have send a notification to the requester. And another good thing here is that you don't have to, you can make use of placeholders, which will automatically pick up the content or the message that you want to send to the customer. So let's say case ID, you can give them the case ID received and say, we have received your request, however, we are closed for the day and we'll be back tomorrow at 9 in the morning. We'll get back in touch as soon as we can, as soon as we are open. So this is the kind of autoresponder that you can send in when someone contacts you out of your business hours. And then the other one that we talked about is survey-based notification. So let's say you have received in a case satisfaction rating which is equal to bad, and the status is received. So because you have to set up the triggers in such a way that there is an event linked with that. So this is why we are adding in the satisfaction status equal to received and satisfaction rating is equal to bad. Then you email the requester saying, so if the placeholders that I talked about, so you don't have to, hard code things. So you can say case requester name, so it will automatically pick up the name of the requester who requested for the case. And then we're sorry for the experience. Please feel free to drop us a line on how we can improve or make it better for the next time. So this kind of gives the customer a feeling that they are being listened to, and then you actually act on that feedback. So it may not be possible for you to contact every single customer out there to get feedback from them on what went wrong or what went right. And, but these kind of things can help you get a lot more information from them, which you can use to your advantage. And now we go back to the third best practice, which is keeping customers informed. So we have set the expectations, and now we want to keep the customers informed throughout their journey while their case is open with us. So so usually a customer contacts you, and then what happens is sometimes if you would have sent them an autoresponder as well, but what happens after that with the case? How do you keep the customer notified? So as we are talking about automation, we want to make sure that the workload for your team goes down using the automation best practices. So what can you do using automations that the customer doesn't have to contact you back time and again to request an update on their case? What is possibly that you can do which leads to less friction as well? So you can set up triggers, you can set up automation rules which will notify the customer on every single update on the case. So let's say trigger customer notification when the case is signed. So you can set up a notification rule which will let the customer know that, okay, first you tell them your case is received, which is the autoresponder, and then you set up a trigger when the case is automatically assigned to a staff member. So then you send another update to the customer saying, okay, your case is now assigned to an agent. You can expect to hear back in the next couple of hours or in the next hour as per your requirements that you might have in your, in your support team or in your business. That all depends on your structure. Imagine if this happens and the customer doesn't have to come back to you at all. It can reduce a lot of manual work for your support team or for your team in general, which is using the help desk. And then you can have a different kind of, let's say you have a particular status wherein, let's say on hold, where you put the case in on hold. This signifies that the case is now under discussion with internally, or it needs some internal discussion, and then you want to let the customer know. So you can set up a trigger saying when status is equal to on hold, send the customer a notification that we are currently discussing your case or your requirement, and this is the minimum working hours or minimum business days that we need to follow up through this discussion, and we'll get back in touch. So this, at all points, is keeping the customer informed of what is happening with his request. And let's talk about retail in particular, how it can help in retail sector. So recently I placed an order with JD Sports, and then at every single point I was sent a notification that, okay, your order is now dispatched, or it is now collected, or it has now reached the store. So every single point of time I had information what was up with my with my order. So this kept me informed. The same thing you can do with these kind of automation requests. So you can let the customer know that the order is placed, it is dispatched, delivered, or collected. So these are the kind of things which help you to keep the customer in the loop all the time. And then let's take another example. Let's say you deal with a kind of cancellation request. So you have a customer who has requested you for a cancellation, be it some kind of retail order or a software subscription, etc. And then you finalize everything, and in the end you have this task or you have this step where you have to get final permission from the customer, and you send an email to the customer, but due to some reason the customer misses the email. He doesn't read it. He read it, but he didn't action it, and he didn't send any approval. And in all that, because miscommunication or missing to read the email, what happens? The card gets charged again, or let's say the order which was supposed to be cancelled gets delivered. So this ends up being not that good. Not resulting into good customer service. How can you avoid it? Using automations. So let's say you are waiting to hear from the customer, and then you can set up an kind of trigger or automation rule wherein if you're waiting to hear from the customer and it has been more than 24 hours, or how many hours you want to set as per your requirement, and you haven't heard back from the customer, you send in another email notification to the customer. And in case one of the email notifications, you don't get reply back from one of the email notifications, automations are so powerful that you can even set them up to send in text messages as well. So you can have integrations through Zapier. All of this we will be sharing with you at the end, as in how you can set them up. So you can send them text messages as well as in terms of reminders. So all of this help you keep the customer in the loop, and it all leads to good customer experience and less workload for your team, and things get resolved quickly when they're automated, and because you can actually focus on fixing things rather than going through things and understanding them, and a lot of things which can be automated and you end up doing manually. So you avoid that if you can actually exploit the automations to the best. Next up, I'll show you how you can set these up. So inform customer case assigned. So let's say case assignee changed from unassigned. So first the case assignee was unassigned, and it is changed from unassigned to assigned. And then you can let the customer know that your case is now assigned to an agent. You can expect to hear back in the next 2 hours. So this lets them know that, okay, now it is assigned and someone is looking into the case. And then you have a monitor. So wherein if you're waiting, so you can have a particular status where you move the case into when you're waiting on the customer. So let's say pending. So case status equal to pending, and then last update made by the requester is greater than 24 hours. And then you send up a follow-up request. We're waiting on you. So what is the difference between triggers and automations? So triggers and monitors. So monitors is basically a check which is done every hour. So whenever a condition is met, the system will keep checking whenever this request is met, and then it will send out a notification to the customer. And whereas trigger is linked with an event. When an event happens, it triggers, and it performs the actions that you have actually asked the trigger to perform. Next up, we go back. Building an automation strategy for your team. So when you're setting up the automations, or when you're thinking of setting up how to set up or how to exploit the automation rules, let's say, you have to think about the bigger picture. What are you trying to achieve? What are the support metrics that you need to fix using automations? Is it the CSAT, or is it the first response time that you're looking to improve? So we already talked about CSAT as in good or bad rating that is submitted by the customer. So you can work on that using automation rules and sending them reminders or follow-ups, what went wrong or what went right, and then you can improve on that. Similarly with FRT, that is the first response time. So you have those automated reply and resolution deadlines, so you don't have to wait for someone to manually set the timer in and then start working on it. Whereas all of these are automated using the automation rules. And then so these things, once you realize what is the support metric that you're looking to achieve, whether it is keeping the customer in the loop, whether it is setting the right expectations, or whether it is keeping your staff more productive by actually getting them to do the actual work. And then once you have decided that, based on that, you can go through the number of automations which are possible in the help desk and exploit them to the best. But while doing all of that, you have to be very realistic, and you have to understand your strengths and weaknesses. I mean, there will be so many options, but you don't want to go overboard with so many automations that it kills the actual customer experience. So there is always a limit, a thin line. So be careful about that. So understand your strengths and weaknesses and play according to that. Building an automation strategy for your team. Let's talk about it with an example. So, largest opportunities for improvement, keep staff working productively, and then you have you create structure and healthy expectations as well. So let's say you have an IT team which is using the help desk, and they deal with a lot of asset management requests when people. They need new laptops, they need a new phone, depending on their stature. And then there are different kind of asset management requests coming in, and the IT team cannot approve them on their own. They need to send the request to someone in senior management or to the finance department for approvals of the invoices or for the money that it is going to cost. So you can do that easily through automations. What you do is, so let's say a request comes into the IT team and it changes its status to approval required. So as soon as it moves it to the status called approval required, the case is automatically assigned to the finance team or to the manager of the person who has sent in the request. And then once they approve it and they change the status to approved, the case gets back. The case is assigned back to the IT team. So thus they can go on to they can go back and proceed with the request and get the asset for the person who has requested for it. So in this way, it kind of take over a lot of the manual work that the teams have to do when getting the work done from each other, when the work involves permissions across teams. So there are different kinds of workflows which you can set up internally. If it doesn't matter whether you're using help desk for external customers or internal customers, automations can be handy in both ways. So that's how you can exploit or use automations to bring down your workload, to improve your support metrics, and to keep everyone happy who's using the help desk. And then using them, you can also ensure that the customers have all the information that they need. Like we talked about, you keep them in the loop every now and then on every update which is made on the case. And it's question and answer time from here on.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Daniel again. Trying to get over to my screen here. All right. Are we seeing my screen okay? Perfect. Okay. One of the questions I've received here is how do we block our agents from changing the assigning of a case? Some managers would like to impose a little more limitations over their agents, and that's really quite a simple trigger that we can create here. If you, under triggers here, under the automation menu on the admin panel, create a new trigger, you'll have to give it a name, block assignee. The conditions for this particular situation would be, the case assignee being changed, and the current user's role type being an agent. There's an owner level, an admin level, an agent level, a collaborator level, and a customer level. And we don't want agents to be able to change the assignee. We only want that to be available for people, further up the hierarchy. So we just set this criteria like this. Perform the following actions: assignee, revert to original, save it, and that trigger is now in place. I'm not going to keep it on here. This is just for testing purposes. However, if you were logged into this help desk as an agent, tried to change the assignee of a case, it would be immediately reverted, and that trigger would be in place. Likewise, another question I got here is, for some of our cases, we need to get approval from management before the ticket can proceed. For instance, like purchasing equipment, can we make automations to handle that workflow? And absolutely. A lot of you may be familiar with custom fields in previous versions of Kayako. We're calling them case fields here in the new version, and you can see that in addition to the system, the default fields that are set up here, much like in the older Kayako Classic, we've added some custom fields here, in this case coffee and billing info. So let's say if the person selects a particular type of coffee, it needs to go to a manager for approval. I mean, in reality that situation is highly unlikely, but again, for demonstration purposes, we'll go over to our triggers here. New trigger, we'll have to give it a name, coffee approval. Select a condition. You'll see the custom fields are listed here at the bottom of the case field. So here's all the default ones, like I mentioned before, subject, priority, type, everything that you're used to. The custom fields will also be listed at the bottom here so we select coffee equal to, we've given this two options, latte or black. So if the person needs, the extra stuff for the latte, then we'll perform the following action. We'll assign that case to a certain team. In this case, it will be the approval team. Save that trigger. It's now in place. Now, anytime someone submits a form on your website and has selected, latte as their option for coffee, then that will be automatically assigned to the approval team. And you can, change the permissions for the approval team, to be only accessible to certain agents or only viewable to certain agents. I mean, the system is really, fully malleable and customizable around what you need. Another question I got about custom fields, which isn't necessarily tied to automation, but is a great question. It's just that we need to ensure that some agents, not customers, but staff member agents, have filled in some custom fields before they close the case. So we recorded the categorization of the case. So if you have some, additional information, like every single ticket needs to have a final cost on it or something like that, and we can't submit these tickets without having that final cost, and you have a custom field for them to input that final cost. In this case, it would be, the billing info. All you would have to do is select this little checkbox here for agents. This field is required when resolving a case. You save that. I'm not going to save it right now just for testing purposes, but if, that trigger were to be in place, and that custom field was empty, the agents would be blocked from resolving that ticket, and the field would turn red. Essentially when you're trying to fill out a form and it says, wait, you're not done yet, it's that kind of error. So it's a great way to put in place to make sure that not only your customers, but your agents are tying up all loose ends and, crossing T's and dotting I's before the cases are submitted. And the last one I have here is we want to ensure that we respond to our social channels like Twitter quicker than our standard reply time. How do we do that? And that's kind of a two-part thing that we would be setting up here. I think the first part to start with would be with the SLAs here. Create a new SLA. We'll have to give it a name, as always, like Twitter SLA. And again, this is all conditional. The automations, triggers, monitors, SLAs, they're all conditional. So in this case, the condition would be the source channel equal to Twitter. And Twitter is a medium that really does demand a higher response time. It's not like email or it's not like a phone call. I mean, we're living in a world of instant delivery, and people are expecting a response right away, and that's why they're communicating in that manner. So if you want to ensure that your agents are responding to those faster, the first thing to do would be, to set up an SLA here. For instance, you have everything else that's set at 1 hour, 2 hours, or 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours for regular cases. We just put in, 1 hour here for first reply time for Twitter, so on and so forth with next reply time, resolution time. Save that SLA. And then, through the use of monitors, we can use the monitor to find cases that are close to breaching that SLA. Again, always have to give it a name. And one of the categories here is SLA. So you can either time till next breach, reply time remaining, first response time remaining, time since last breach, resolution time remaining. In this case, a good general one would be the time till next breach. So if the time till next breach is less than or equal to 1 hour, and the SLA is equal to Twitter SLA, then we will email a team here, whichever team, and say, hey, respond to your Twitter. Obviously, it would probably be a little more polite than that and complicated, but you can also use placeholders here, which we'll go on more about further, to take custom data from that case, like the requester's first name or their email address or any personal information that you want to interject, so you don't have to type that out manually. It's all taken care of on the back end. And with that, I got one more here where we had mentioned before about sending a text message notification. Traditionally we deal primarily with email notifications. It is possible to send a text message notification through the use of Zapier. Zapier is a third-party software that we're working with that you can use to integrate with hundreds of different apps, and that's all set up through their website. So using an integration, you could set up a Zap where the trigger would be a new case creation or a case update, and using an SMS application in Zapier like Pushover or Twilio or whatever you're using for SMS to sign to that to send an SMS to the desired mobile number. And it's great because Kayako, with this functionality is now tied into so many different programs, and I think you're really going to be amazed at how well it integrates with your feature set from external sources. And I believe that is all the questions I have at this time. Alicia, do you have anything else?
Nope, I think we are. Here, let me just take this back over here to I think we're good. I'm sorry, I think we had a couple more questions sneak in at the last minute, but we are out of time. So we're going to follow up with you personally after the webinar. Oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong slide, aren't I? Going to slide on through. So that being said, thank you all so much for joining us today. If you're a current Kayako customer, you know exactly how to get a hold of us at any time, support@kayako.com. Messenger chat, whatever you need, social media. If you are currently kind of checking Kayako out, we really encourage you to check out a free trial. We just relaunched the new product, as Daniel said, and we're really, really thrilled with the positive feedback that we've been receiving in terms of how we've built this new experience, in terms of helping businesses craft customer support as their competitive advantage. So we hope you've enjoyed the presentation today. Again, any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll be emailing out a recording of this presentation to all of you afterwards and following up with the last few questions afterwards. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.